Well, first, the details. Reverend Roberta is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. She was raised in the Community Church of New York, where she was in the cradle role as an infant and remained active through high school. Ministry is a second career for Reverend Roberta, as she was a nurse and a certified nurse midwife for years before answering the call to ministry. She earned her Master of Divinity from Wesley Seminary in Washington, D.C. And after serving as a consulting minister in Manassas for 5 years, she came here as a new congregation minister in 1997 and served as our minister for 8 years until the spring of 2005. She then entered the accredited interim ministry program and served interim congregations up and down the East Coast. Reverend Finkelstein retired from the full-time ministry in May of 2019, but continued to serve in part-time transitional settings through the pandemic. Reverend Roberta has been married to her husband, Barry, since 1974. Their son, Danny, is a product of the religious education program in the Arlington Church in Virginia and is happily married to Jess. They have 2 daughters on which Grandma Roberta dotes. Reverend Roberta took our church from a ragtag bunch of disaffected choir members from the UU Church in Reston and taught us how to be a real UU congregation. We grew remarkably both in numbers and in spirit in her years with us. On a more personal note, you may not know that Reverend Roberta was the impetus behind the church rock band, Just Us. She and I were driving together to a church picnic one Sunday, and she noticed a music CD I had in my car by the rock group Counting Crows. She said she really liked the group, and I mentioned I thought rock music could actually work in a UU service. To my surprise, she wholeheartedly agreed. And that discussion led to the first iteration of the church rock band that would become Just Us. That band even included Barry on accordion and son Danny on drums. And that is the story of how our band got started some 25 years ago. It pales in comparison to everything else Reverend Roberta did for us, but it's one thing that's close to my heart. Please stick around after the service for a welcome cake to celebrate her presence here today.
Our chalice lighting words were written by Robert Weston many years ago. Autumn, we know, is life en route to death. The trees flaunting their colors at the sky in other times will follow where the leaves have fallen, and so shall we. Yet other lives will come. So may we know, accept, embrace the mystery of life we hold a while, nor mourn that it outgrows each separate self, but still rejoice that we may have our day. Lift high our colors to the sky and give in our time fresh glory to the earth.
Our chalice hymn this morning is going to be one verse. I'm ringing a little bit, Jonah. One verse of number 73, Chant for the Seasons. We're going to sing the autumn verse. The words will appear on your screen, but the choir members are going to come stand up front and help lead you all. They all went, it was their idea. Chant for the Seasons, number 73. We will sing the first verse only. Hold on, there's a video, Jonah. No? Yep. Cool. Just checking. We need the video. Summertime has turned the star wheel. Autumn is upon us. Summertime has turned the star wheel. Autumn is upon us. Sweetly angling sun, sweet up
So, all those of you who are young of body or who are feeling young of spirit this morning, or who might be a grown-up accompanying such a person, if you would like to come forward for a conversation about appreciating the fleeting. Nobody's coming up. Okay, Rosalie is going to be here with the Wonder Box, and she'll just wing it. Thank you, Nancy. Somebody's got it. Come on, yeah. There you go. I'm old too. So, you might not think that a story for children should be entitled Appreciating the Fleeting, because that's a lot of big words, right? But I'm going to explain them. Appreciate, Nancy, what does appreciate mean? To like. And fleeting means it goes by really fast, right? So here's someone to come help you, Nancy. So it seems like autumn is a time when there are a lot of things that go by really fast, right? For example, what's happening to the trees? Help Nancy. What's happening to the leaves on the trees? They're not green anymore. They are all different colors, so like the ones in here. Yeah. Now, let me ask you something, and anyone can answer this. If the leaves were orange and red and yellow all year round, would we be excited about it? No, it's only because it only happens in the fall, and it only happens for a little while, because soon after they're red and green or yellow, what color are they? Brown. Now, there's something else about autumn that is fleeting, and that is there's a holiday coming up in a couple days. What is it? Oh, no. Before Election Day. Halloween. And what happens on Halloween is children go out trick-or-treating, and they come back with big bags full of candy. And you look at those big bowls of candy, and you eat some. And if you have permissive parents like we were, you allow your son to eat all the candy corn he wants only once, because he learns that too much candy corn upsets the tummy. But if you had a big bowl of candy in your house every single day of the year, would you be excited about it? No, other than Nancy. Stephanie says no. Stephanie is a well-behaved. So that's what I mean about appreciating the fleeting. There are things in the autumn that only last a little while, and it's the little while that makes them special, right? So this season is a season of appreciating the fleeting. Let's think about, as autumn progresses, all the things we might appreciate just for a little while. It makes our hearts happy. And now, as the children and their adult leaders depart for religious education, we will sing them on their way with a song called As You Go. Someone's going to have to help Nancy up. She's young in spirit, her knees, not so much. Okay. As you go.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go, to nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
reading The Turning Leaves is also by Robert Weston. In what the autumn colors say to me, turning from tired green to brilliant gold, scarlet and crimson, then maroon and brown, I hear a deeper voice than summer knew. It's true, the colors say time's running out, and the leaves falling, falling, as from our lives days and years fall off, tell of lost strength we shall not know again. They paint for us the story of our time, life passing, and the deeds we might have done, the creations waiting in vain for our fulfillment, now seemingly forgotten, neglected. But they also shame our too ready resignation and the giving up of dreams. Let the heart speak in rebellion against defeat. Let the failures of the past be guideposts. Let the lights of our individual lives flame with the dignity and color each its own. And from each separate life, let a fresh glow kindle in hearts a greater understanding, compassion, and a reverent yet courageous acceptance of life still going on.
There's any Bob Dylan fans out there? This isn't a Bob Dylan song, but it sounds a whole lot like one. So get ready and see if you can talk about it. Our first two, if that tells you anything. For little sopranos. I'm gonna take a step this way. Just, I know, but you'll cover her, just a teeny bit. There we go, right here. I'll just.
A song is born with just the sound of one voice.
So once upon a time, all religions were earth-based, right? People lived by the rhythm of the seasons, the waxing and waning of the moon, the ebb and flow of the tides. They felt awe watching a beautiful sunset, fear and trembling in the face of a storm, and gratitude for the bounty of the harvest. People built their religions around those experiences of awe and fear and gratitude. And then things changed. Many places on earth moved from an agrarian to an industrial to a, I don't know what you would call it, post-industrial technological economy. And in that process, we lost much of the wisdom that was embedded in those ancient religions. More recently, though, science has begun to teach us about the consequences of that loss. Warming oceans, greenhouse gases, the dramatic evidence we are now seeing of the changing global climate. Part of the solution to this crisis seems to me to be to reclaim some of that ancient earth-based wisdom. Over the past 3 decades, which just happens to be the lifespan of this congregation, earth-based spiritualities have found their way back into the Unitarian Universalist pantheon of theologies. You might say that your history, right, happened in parallel with the reemergence of earth-based spirituality. I'm not saying there's cause and effect, but you know, it's there. At the time that the language of earth-based spirituality was working its way through the labyrinthine multi-year process of acceptance into our association's statement of principles, you, some of you, a hearty band of UUs, or U's as we used to be fond of saying, started this congregation, which was then known as the Northern Virginia UU Fellowship for a fleeting moment. For a while, you functioned as a lay-led fellowship, then welcomed the gifts of a student minister, and then you made the decision to go big, applying for the new congregation ministry program of the Unitarian Universalist Association. When accepted, you had the opportunity to hire a full-time new congregation minister with financial support from the UUA and a director of religious education whose salary was also partially underwritten. It was a joyful day for me when I got the word that I was the minister being sent for your consideration as your new congregation minister. And after a wild weekend of meet and greets, you affirmed that choice, and in the summer of 1997, I arrived to begin that 8-year ministry with you. My fondest memory of that first day at work was that I almost immediately locked myself out of the office, right, while moving in boxes of books, and I had to call Stephanie to come and let me back in, and I just sat there on the steps in the heat of August looking sad until she got here, which she did, graciously. We then worked together to bring Cindy McCrae on board as your religious education director. Cindy, by the way, sends her regards. I just talked to her the other day from her home outside of Asheville, which luckily escaped with only minimal damage the ravages of Hurricane Helene. And that brings me back to the costs of climate change and the reemergence of earth-based spirituality in our movement. While this congregation was being born, delegates to the General Assembly, which is the annual meeting of our association, voted to add this language to our statement of sources. Spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions would celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. I hear that as a call to carefully reconsider our relationship to the earth in light of what modern science has taught us. Evoking the tenets of environmental stewardship, this approach to spirituality replaces exploitation of the earth with reverence for the earth. Rather than understanding ourselves as the crown of creation, free to manipulate the environment for our own needs, we understand ourselves to be part of an interdependent web. Earth-based spirituality affirms the divinity in all living things, in trees and mountains and animals and people, and it calls us to live carefully and mindfully on the earth. And it also reminds us of what the rhythms of nature can teach us. At the time of the autumn equinox, for example, the number of hours in light and darkness are equal. It's what an equinox is. This natural balance between light and dark nudges us to seek balance in our lives as well. Autumn is a time to gather in the harvest and to take careful stock of what will be needed for the winter, both literally and figuratively. Whether or not we are actually reaping what we have sown, autumn is a time to focus on that inner harvest as well. It's an in-between time. The high activity, high energy summer, right, is behind us, but it's not time to hibernate just yet. As the bridge between summer and winter, autumn is a time to slow down gradually, to recalibrate, to rebalance. The balance of light and dark at the fall equinox models for us the balance we need to seek in our lives, a seeking done at least partially in solitude. Now I'm going to do a little stream of consciousness thing here. Does anybody know the Duke Ellington song that Billie Holiday made famous called Solitude? Yeah. In my solitude, you haunt me with reveries of days gone by. In my solitude, you haunt me with memories that never die. Now, the truth is, Billie was really singing not about solitude, but about loneliness. Her magical voice expressed a deep sadness about being abandoned and yearning for the rekindling of a lost relationship. The theologian Paul Tillich wrote that loneliness describes the pain of being alone, while solitude describes the glory of being alone. Perhaps Duke should have called the song Loneliness instead of Solitude. Anyway, pre-pandemic, many of us struggled to find enough of the glory of being alone. We didn't have enough solitude, and then COVID came to call. We embraced solitude as a form of both self-care and really social justice. We wore masks and we stayed home and we practiced social distancing to protect ourselves and our loved ones for sure, but we also did all those things as an intentional way to communally fight the spread of the virus and to protect the most vulnerable among us. As we have emerged from the acute phase of the pandemic, we have been so happy to be together again. We began to acknowledge what we couldn't really say in the midst of the crisis, that the isolation was painful and costly. We were lonely. We missed each other. Our children missed valuable months of school and socialization, and we have not yet recouped those losses. We have not yet taken the full measure of what the pandemic has cost us, either as individuals or as institutions. So why then talk about solitude as a positive thing, as a spiritual practice? Because we still need the spiritual practice of solitude, even in our togetherness. Reverend Scott Alexander's definition of a spiritual practice is anything that you do regularly and with intention. You choose solitude in order to probe your inner being. This chosen solitude is not loneliness. It's not the pain of being alone. It's the glory of being alone. It's filled with hope and possibility and strength. In solitude, you await the promptings of the Spirit, that still small voice within. You may discover new sources of inspiration. Expect a hint of what it is you need to do to prepare for winter or the next stage in your life journey. Loneliness is the poverty of the self, wrote the poet May Sarton. Solitude is the richness of the self. Yet it is difficult for us to experience the glory and the richness of solitude on a regular basis. It takes intention and discipline. And herein lies the real conundrum about solitude. It takes a community to help each of us practice solitude. We need to be together in some way in order to experience solitude as a richness of the self. It's hard to practice solitude without a community of faith, which gives us that gift of intentionality, of support for the practice. To turn inward and to grow spiritually, we need at other times to be surrounded by our beloveds, family, community, members of our congregations. To experience the richness of self, we need each other. Being part of a religious community assures us that our aloneness will be solitude rather than loneliness. Now, for some reason, an image popped into my head as I was writing this sermon. It's an image of something that was described to me with great humor, not something that I ever saw for myself. It was in the earliest days of this congregation when that hardy band, what did you call yourselves, Paul? Left the Reston Church and set off on their own. The vast majority of that hardy band were choir members, and every Sunday when it was time for the choir to sing, all those singers would leave their seats and walk to the front of the room, leaving almost nobody except Stephanie and Terry Dick, I believe, sitting in the pews. Now, seated all by their lonesome, they were surrounded by empty chairs. They and the people up here singing realized that your origin story is one of recognizing that you needed more people with more diverse gifts to offer. People to sing need people to listen. People whose passion was making the world a better place for children and refugees and GLBTQ folks. People who could balance a budget. People who could nurture the spiritual life of children and elders and comfort those who were experiencing loss or grief. That's why you decided to go big and enter the new congregation ministry program. You needed to fill those seats in order to create a genuine and whole community of faith. One of my favorite readings from the back of the hymnal is by Ken Patton. It starts, "We arrive out of many singular rooms, walking over the branching streets." It's probably familiar to some of you. "We come to be assured that others will surround us, to restore their images on our eyes. We enlarge our voices in common speaking and singing. We try again that solitude found in the midst of those who with us seek their hidden reckonings. Solitude found in the midst of those with us. Our eyes reclaim the remembered faces. Their voices stir the surrounding air. The warmth of their hands assures us, and the gladness of our spoken names. This is the reason of cities, of homes, of assemblies in the houses of worship. It is good to be with one another." So we come together intentionally. We are known, assured, made glad, comforted, encouraged, challenged. And in that context, it is safe for us to seek that solitude found in the midst of those who with us seek their hidden reckonings. Having known what it is to be held by a dependable community of faith, we can at times choose to turn inward and seek our hidden reckonings. And then we turn outward again and come together, and we are glad to see each other, and we have the intention to welcome in those still waiting to discover what we have already been blessed with. That's how we grow. That's how congregations grow. There's a rhythm, a coming in and a going out, a looking inward and a looking outward. Now, some of you may also be familiar with these words from Thomas Merton. There is a pervasive form of contemporary violence that is activism and overwork. Anyone ever experienced that? The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit ourselves to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our work because it kills the root of inner wisdom that makes work fruitful. I forget where I heard this, but one time a colleague, and we ministers can be guilty of overworking and overfunctioning a little bit. A colleague posted this little thing on Facebook that said, "If I keep working ahead on my to-do list, there should be one day before I die when I have nothing to do." That is a bad way to approach ministry and life. If Merton is right, and I believe he is, that this tendency to overwork and overdo and overcommit and overfunction is a form of violence, then taking the time for solitude is not a luxury, but it is a necessary antidote to that violence of modern-day busyness. It is a balm that soothes our stress. It is the magic bean that grows an amazingly generous plant that feeds our souls. It is what makes it possible for us to be wise rather than just smart. You can know a lot of things and not be wise. For example, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting the tomato in your fruit salad. Take the time to live into the spirituality of autumn, a spirituality of intentionally choosing moments of solitude, to experience awe and gratitude, to slow down, to rebalance, to gather in the harvest of heart and mind. I thought about ending this sermon by singing my own version of the Duke Ellington Billie Holiday classic. And I thought to myself, yeah, Roberta, you can belt out hymns, but I don't think you can sing that song. But I did rewrite the lyrics. Here's what I wrote. In our solitude, we're healed with reveries of calm and serenity. In our solitude, we're comforted with evolving possibilities. We sit in our chairs, stillness everywhere. Everyone can be so calm. With peace everywhere, we sit and we share the breath of life with all humanity. So in this season of autumn, of fleeting splendor, let us pause often to appreciate both what passes and what endures. In this season of harvest, of gathering in, let us pause often to express our gratitude for the bounty of that harvest in our lives. In this season of life and root to death, let a fresh glow kindle in our hearts, a greater understanding, compassion, and a reverent yet courageous acceptance of life still going on this autumn. So let it be. Amen.